Hi, welcome to the Incidental Prepper channel. Today I'm going to be dehydrating celery. As you can see, I'm starting with a few large bunches. I'm going to cut off the ends of each bunch and separate the stalks so I can clean them. They do need a good washing, so I'll give each stalk a scrub with the brush. And a final rinse for good measure. Now it's time to chop up the celery. Basically, I cut them in pieces that were probably between 1/4 of an inch and 1/2 inch wide. My main concern was keeping them relatively uniform in size. Now that they're all cut up, it's time to blanch them. I started boiling the water earlier in the process so it would be ready when we got to this stage. I carefully added the celery to the boiling water, and once the water came back to a boil, I set the timer for 3 minutes. While the celery was blanching, I took that time to prepare a big bowl of ice water to use a little later on in the process. Once the celery is done blanching, it's time to strain it. Be careful, that steam can get pretty hot. I immediately poured the celery into the bowl of ice water to stop it from cooking. I stirred it for a few moments to make sure it was cooled off, and then strained the water out. Finally, it's time to start arranging the celery on the dehydrator trays. I had a lot of celery, but I did my best to try to spread it out evenly. Then it was time to put it into the dehydrator. I initially set the timer for about 10 hours at 140 degrees, but in the end, I did leave it in for approximately 15 hours to make sure it got nice and dry. Once I was convinced it was dry enough, I let it cool for about 1/2 hour before I started jarring it up. When taking the items off of the dehydrator tray, I usually find it easier to put it into a larger bowl first and then move it into a jar. You can actually hear just how dry the celery did get. Now using a funnel, it's a lot easier to pour the celery right into the jar from the bowl. I use a food-grade silica pack just to help keep the moisture out of the jar. I typically don't vacuum seal my jars for dehydrated food because I use it on an ongoing basis. So here, all that celery I started with turned into less than a pint of easy-to-store and easy-to-use dehydrated food. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me in future videos.